Hello, hello. My name is Mike Bifulco. I am Irreverent Mike. I'm a developer advocate at Stripe. I'm hanging out today with my new friend Trey Batard. Trey, how are you today?
I'm doing pretty good. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, of course. And so we're going to be talking, I guess, a bit today about live streaming, setting up for live streams, all the stuff that goes into that. It's going to be maybe a bit of a confusing meta stream where we're live streaming about live streaming and talking about tools. I expect at some point I will get really confused as to what I'm showing to the world on stream versus what's I'm seeing on my screen, because I'm like going to be toggling through the tools that I usually use to stream with. It's a very confusing thing to try and do live. So there may be some hiccups there. But why don't we start? Trey, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us a bit about what you do for work, where in the world you're located, things like that, and we can go from there.
Sure. My name is Trey Batard. I live in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. I am a developer advocate at Atomic Financial. So we do like payroll integrations. So if you want to set up direct deposit or do verification of income or employment, we have tools that help you do that, SDK and so forth. My job touches all the things that DevRel touches. So I do content creation, docs, community management stuff, the whole 9 yards. And more recently, I've been trying to learn a little bit more about some of the tools for content creation that are more video and audio focused. So writing is something that I do fairly regularly, getting more into recording videos, doing streams, video podcasts like this. So I've been trying to learn how to use tools like Canva, OBS, Figma to a certain extent. That's a little bit more in the development side of things, but yeah, so this seemed like a cool thing to jump on and talk about OBS a little bit, and learn about streaming.
Yeah, totally. So first of all, you're right up the road for me, which is very rare in our world. I don't think I work with many people who are in North Carolina. So, I'll wave next time I'm headed up the interstate and going past
Cool.
Winston-Salem there. Yeah, I live in a very similar world to you. So I do DevRel at Stripe. I'm an advocate there, and a lot of my work is written. So I do quite a bit of blogging and tutorializing and things like that.
Sure.
Historically, I've been doing live streaming for a long time. So I started my Twitch channel, I think in 2013 or something like that. At the time I was working for Gymnasium. The gymnasium.com is a free online code school for sort of like creatives who are learning how to code. So maybe graphic designers, copywriters, people like that who want to dabble in building things for the web. I had the good fortune that was all open source, which meant that my process could be open source. So every Tuesday afternoon from something like noon to 3 or something like that, I would hop on Twitch and just share my desktop with the world and show the world whatever I was doing. It was never planned. It was always like, here's what I'm working on. Here's me, suffering through building a new feature or doing some research or whatever it was. With the intention of kind of doing a different sort of tutorial than you sort of see on like YouTube or on help docs and things like that for various sites. I've always held pretty firm that I think the live stream thing is useful because all the tutorials you'll see for like how to do something with Stripe, how to do something with, it doesn't matter what it is, Bootstrap for crying out loud. All of those things show you like the 10 steps you need to do to complete something. And if you do those 10 steps perfectly, job done, you're in great shape. What they never show you how to do is, oh my gosh, I've done something wrong, or I have a more complicated idea in mind and I don't know how to connect the dots. What is it like to do that in the real world? And so I sort of jokingly refer to it as auditioning for my job every time. But a lot of it was just showing people what it's like to learn and showing people what it's like to ideate and to research things and like, honestly, maybe to be frustrated from time to time. So all that to say, I've been streaming for a while. I've done a little bit of recorded video stuff, both for Stripe and for previous employers. But primarily my world of video stuff has been live streaming. So we'll kind of go through some of the tools here and tools of the trade. And, if there's time, I've got some Figma stuff, some sketch stuff that I can show you as well. And we can kind of walk through all that. Cool. I thought it might make sense to start by talking about live stream prep, like sort of the things that you do to get ready for a live stream. I realize I have this whole ritual of things that I do that are set up to make me hopefully look as good as possible on stream and sort of not, run into problems. I would love to hear kind of how you get set up, and then I'd be happy to talk you through like the kind of things that I do to set up my space, my desktop, my computer, all that as well.
Well, I mean, first thing to do is make sure that the lighting, just the kind of fundamentals of the actual video streamer up to snuff, and I'm presenting myself as good as possible. So I check my lights, I check to make sure my video source is good, check my audio levels, make sure my couch is cleaned off, that kind of thing. I don't want to have a messy room in the background. And then I prep for content. So write out any questions that I want to go over, important points to talk about, just the general kind of outline of where the discussion is going to go, or interesting things that I feel like might be relevant. And then I turn off notifications. I think that's usually one of the latter things that I do, but it's a pretty important one. You don't want your Slack just blowing up while you're trying to focus on either recording or live streaming.
Yeah, spot on. Totally agree with you there. I'm curious, your setup at your desk there. Do you have a laptop? Do you have a monitor in front of you, or two or three, or what does your visuals look like there?
I got two monitors, and then I have a tablet, and my laptop is just kind of behind my monitor, so it's out of the way. I get as minimal stuff on my desk as I can get away with. So I got a mouse and a mouse pad and a keyboard, and then I have my phone, screen off, and then my tablet. Depending on if I'm going to be taking notes or something, I'll prep that too.
Sure.
Or do handwritten notes or something.
Yeah, I'm fairly similar. I've developed this sort of cockeyed setup for my two monitors, where the first monitor is dead straight in front of me, and then my secondary monitor is off at sort of 45 degrees. And that is primarily so that when I'm streaming, I can look straight up into my camera and kind of hopefully have some level of eye line that makes sense. Although naturally, as I'm streaming, I'm at the bottom of the screen, the top of the screen, all that. And,
sure.
That's sort of where that all came from.
Yeah, I tried the 3-monitor setup, and I feel like I got exhausted more.
Yeah.
It felt like it encouraged context switching more than even having 2 monitors did. So I ended up, because I like the same thing too. I like having a 90-degree angle to what I'm looking at, and the 2 monitors encourages me to have to swivel a little bit, but I feel like that's more manageable than just constantly going back and forth too much with 3 monitors.
Yeah, I agree. And if for people who haven't done streaming before, an important thing about this whole process is right now on my secondary monitor, which is off to my right-hand side here, is all of my tooling for making sure the stream is going well. So I've got one window that's YouTube chat. I've got one window that is the YouTube studio live, whatever tool set that they have, which shows is the stream quality good? Are people watching, that sort of a thing. I've got a Twitter tab open there. And then usually I also have OBS on that screen. Although today, because I'm showing how to use OBS, it will be on my main screen. And we'll kind of walk through that as well. But generally, when I'm streaming, I try not to look at that screen unless it's to check something or another. Yeah, you mentioned a few things in your setup that I do as well. So I definitely check my camera, check all of the things, make sure my windows are arranged. I turn off all the apps that I'm not using, set my lights. One thing that I tend to try to do is turn off most of the lights in the room, because if I leave the lights on, you get this kind of weird yellowy washed out thing that the camera has trouble with. So I tend to leave the lights off. I have windows on 2 sides of me here. So the window in front of me is usually cracked a little bit to light the front of my face. And then if it's sunny over here, which it happens to be right now, I get some lighting on the side of my face, which tends to help with the silhouette against the background. And then I actually have 3 different cameras that I go between from time to time for reasons. A lot of it is because sometimes I do mobile app development where I'll have one camera pointed at my desktop so I can show me, working on the app or whatever. But right now you're looking into my Sony camera. I have a A6600 set up. I also have, let's see if I can switch through them without breaking the stream here. I have an Opal camera, which is one of the sort of newer USB Type-C smart cameras this is what I tend to use for pointing down at the screen on the desktop. And then because this is a Mac studio display, there's also the built-in camera to the Mac. And as you can see, they all have wide ranges of field of view and stuff like that too. So generally speaking, the Sony camera looks the best, provided I didn't just kill it. Maybe I just did. We might have to switch. Yeah, nature of the beast. Let's see. We'll try that again. So switch back to the Opal for a second. And then maybe the CamLink. Nope, I guess not. Okay, fair enough. We are stuck with the Opal for now, and that's going to have to be good enough. So let me swing this thing over a little bit more, and I will move my own self in front of it. And that's just how it goes sometimes. One of the things actually that I wanted to mention too is that I really like the I don't know, the sort of freeform nature of streaming, that things can go wrong and you kind of just have to go with it.
Right.
You haven't gotten to experience this yet, Trey, but I have 2 cats who usually show up the moment I start talking. So usually at some point during the stream, there's like a tail that goes by the camera or whatever. And I've just learned to live with that. And, thankfully I have colleagues and friends who are on board with that too.
Luckily, mine is sleeping right now, but he likes to chime in whenever I start talking.
We'll set the countdown. We'll see who shows up first.
Yeah.
All right, let's get into it. I want to show you my OBS setup, which, with the fair warning that it is more complicated than it needs to be, and that my recommendation always for someone starting new is to go as simple as possible and then slowly add things as you get comfortable with what you're doing. So we'll do a couple of setups here. I'll walk you through what I use. Any questions you have along the way, we can kind of go through, and then maybe we can go through your setup and kind of tweak as well. And I'll try and remember also to talk about the differences between setting up for a live stream versus setting up to record for like a pre-planned video that's not streamed live. Yeah. So let me share out my desktop here. Hopefully you can see this is OBS. It is a little tricky here because resolution is a little limited on the stream, but let's first, I'm going to briefly enable this preview here with my camera live, which, oh, hey, look, I'm even frozen on it. Yeah, which gets really confusing really fast because there's a lot of things here. You suddenly see my whole desktop and it's very, very confusing. So let me switch that off for the time being, and I'll kind of walk you through everything here with a clear desktop, and we can hopefully make some sense of all this. So it is a little frozen. That's not great. Let's switch between a couple of things here. So we'll get a brief view of OBS itself on here. And that's because what I'm sharing is the desktop for this screen. So I'm going to break this down into a few different sort of rectangles that show up in my OBS setup. And let me go through the scenes I have first. So I have a countdown scene. This is there's some tooling within OBS where you can set up a countdown with a little script. All I've done for that is told the script to start at 3 minutes. Generally, when I do a live stream, I start this 3 minutes before I'm going to go live. It counts down to 0, and when it gets to 0, it just says starting soon. So this disappears. What you're looking at here is a blank background with an image on it. So there's just this one image that I've created. That's the whole border and the leaf and the text and all of that. This image, this clock, countdown is a dynamic element. So that's this countdown text here. The couple of things that you'll see here as well, I have a Streamlabs ticker and a Spotify thing. We'll get into those later on, but the gist of it is that sometimes when I'm streaming, I stream music from Spotify as well. And on certain scenes, I have Spotify set up to show up. On some scenes, I have Spotify set up not to show up. In this case, it's here. Does that all make sense so far?
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Okay, next one is standby. This one's easy. All you see here is an image. There's a bunch of things. I've had a few different versions of this over the years. This is really just like, hey, if something's gone wrong or if I'm not ready to start at the end of the countdown, I'll switch here. And this is meant to like buy me a minute or two to go do whatever. That could be anything from a long stream, from going to get a glass of water or use the restroom or something like that, to often I'll have like a delivery come to the door or something like that during a stream. I've had a couple of versions of this show up. Yeah, I have. So there's the dog image here. I have this sort of old timey one that I've used at various times over the years. There are a couple of audio sources added in here as well that actually probably shouldn't be there. OBS is kind of funny in that you have this sort of global audio mixer where you can see as I'm talking, the VU meter is going up and down. That's my voice going into my main mic. You can also add it to individual scenes. So if you didn't want to have like this microphone show up in every scene, you could have it set up there. And from early on, I think I had mics set up in every scene and I just wasn't using this audio mixer. I've since switched, and actually you'll see my mic and Spotify here as well so that I can adjust the volume of music as I'm streaming too. Let's see, I have a coding view. This might be, I'm frozen on this, which is actually kind of helpful right now. So this is broken up into a bunch of things. This is definitely the most complex scene, but I will try and make it as simple as possible. It's a little confusing to look at first. I have a cat cam set up here. Sometimes my cat sleeps in front of my monitor and I put it on stream. I was told people really like that. And every time I've done that on a stream, people have lost their minds about it. So That shows up on the lower sort of left corner of the screen in a way that doesn't impinge too much on the desktop view. Again, I have this Spotify thing here, which actually I'm going to remove because I know that doesn't need to be in there. Just kidding, it does. Okay, cool. We'll leave Spotify. There's a frame and foreground thing. So I've done some really interesting stuff here with layering of images. When I'll turn on my desktop here briefly. Here, let's see if I can do this. I'm trying to think of a cheeky way to do this where it won't get very confusing. But if I turn on my desktop view, you can see the desktop is kind of layered into this leaf. So the leaf comes over top of the desktop at some points. Oh, yeah. It kind of comes over the bottom and then cuts over this corner. That's done with a probably far too complicated setup of images that are sort of interleaved with my camera here. So I'll turn them off kind of one at a time so we can see how that works. But there is, let's see, in here somewhere. So this is the tip of the leaf, which is sort of all of the stuff that goes over top of the image is in this image here. And then there is a background setup as well, which is this guy. So all of this is a separate image. And you can kind of see how that comes together to deliver like the entire thing that you're seeing. Honestly, sometimes it's more helpful to have the desktop just in front of the leaf. Like if I need to show the literal edges of the screen while I'm debugging something, I'll just turn that off. And it's not super noticeable either. Let's see, what else? So on this part of the screen here is my stream chat. That varies depending on whether I'm streaming to Twitch or to YouTube. There are really, really nice ways to embed Twitch chat. And I believe, yeah, I've got it here. What it boils down to is you spit. Ooh, actually, I don't even know if I can show that URL. That might be not good to show on stream there. Anyway, you add a web source to OBS, which looks like this. You go browser. It says test browser source. You give it a name. And then you give that some URL. So I'll use my site as an example. This would make an iframe essentially that dumps whatever URL you pick into it and puts it onto the site. And so what that means is Twitch chat, YouTube chat, all you need for it is the right web URL and to put it into a rectangle on your screen, and it'll show the sort of live chat as it's happening. So actually, right now we're streaming to YouTube, and I can grab the chat window from YouTube and put that URL in here, and it would show up as a YouTube chat. So let's see, I can do that really quickly here. If I find my test stream, yeah, here we go. So if I paste that in, hit OK, suddenly we have our YouTube chat. So, and I can put in a message here. I can say hello world, and my chat will show up in a couple of seconds. That's great. One tricky thing about this is that you need to tell OBS the size of this browser window. You can't just like edit it on the fly. So OBS has all these nice tools for like cropping things, but it won't re-render the browser window to the same size that you've cropped it to. That's just a quirk. So when you make the thing, you have to essentially give it a width and a height and try and match the size. And I actually got pretty close there, 300 by whatever, and put it in there. Does that all make sense so far?
It does, yeah.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, there's lots of uses for that. There's a bunch of services that will take YouTube chat or Twitch chat and also let you apply essentially a theme to it with CSS. So I'll grab some links for that and drop them in the description. I forget what they're called, but there's one for each where you can kind of make them unified so that you can make the YouTube chat and the Twitch chat look alike and essentially just have them both displayed at all times. And if you're streaming to YouTube, it'll look the same as if it was coming on Twitch. But you know, essentially you only get the chat messages from one or the other. There are also services like StreamYard, which will let you interleave both chats. So if you're live streaming to two sources at once, there's more complicated setups to do that. But I generally just stream to one or the other. Lately, I've been doing YouTube more than Twitch. And so generally I have a YouTube window overlaid on here. What you're seeing here below, chat is disabled for this live stream, is I believe a browser window for a previous Twitch stream. And so that's what it looks like when it's disabled. All right, so that's that. A couple of the other things in here, I have my webcam set up, which is, for whatever reason, the image is not updating right now, which might actually be helpful for the live stream here to not get too confusing. But you'll see I've got this circle around my webcam, and that is purely decoration. That's just to make it framed a little more nice in the context of the other stuff that's here. And if I turn both of these off, you can kind of see like there's other things that exist behind it that I just don't use. So when chat is live and it's scrolling, it scrolls upward. So it scrolls from the top. So new messages come in at the top. So it doesn't bother me too much if I'm overlaid over the bottom of it. It's just kind of, scrolling history, and a somewhat expected thing to see there.
And do you want to show how you made your webcam output a circle?
Yeah, okay.
The square?
Yeah, that's an interesting one too. So for the source for the webcam, maybe I should go even more basic. In OBS, you add a web source, or you add a video source, and then you tell it which thing to come from. I've got a few of them on my machine. We'll see if I break everything by doing this. But yeah, my CamLink is just dead right now for whatever reason. So when you add the source, it grabs the video from that camera. And so actually now I've gone and done it. So we can stretch my video to fit in this circle here. And we're going to have to redo the crop on it because I changed sources. That's a little frustrating. At any rate, let me back into this a little more intelligently. So there's a way to add a mask to images on OBS that will essentially tell OBS how to display what's there. And so what I've done to do that is, you can see this is a circle. And if I go into the webcam and I right click on it and I go to filters, or if I click this filters button here, you'll see that there is a crop and a round effect added here.
I don't see that dialog.
Oh, okay. Let's see if I can share that out. 1 second. We're going with the flow here. Okay, let's try that. Can you see it now?
Ah, yes.
Okay, cool. So there's two effect filters on here. One is called crop and one is called round. They do exactly what they sound like. So crop cuts in from the left and right of the video feed, like that. And so if I set these both to 0, you'll see like it sort of zooms out on that feed there. And what the round one does is it does what it sounds like. It takes my entire video frame and puts a round crop in front of it. It does that by using an image as a mask. So I'll pull up this image in a minute here, but essentially the image is a stark white and stark black image. And you essentially tell it which color to use as the mask. So in this case, I'm saying FFF, which is white. And any pixel in that image that is white is not rendered, and anything else is rendered in the video. So the image I have is just a pure black circle and with a white background. And so anything that's white is cropped out of there. Does that make sense? I think I kind of explained it.
Yeah, I think so.
An important setting for that here is this alpha mask thing. There's a bunch you could do. So blend with addition, multiply, and subtraction will actually sort of add like a filter to the video feed, which is not what you want. And I can kind of switch through them. You'll see like they don't seem to do as much because that's not what they're set up for. But the alpha mask should do exactly what we expect. And so you can kind of see that affecting here, and the crop as well. And I'm going to set these back to 50 and 50 so I don't forget. And yeah, that's how I've set that up. I do have some scenes where I have my camera set up for full screen, just me. This should do it. So that's a full screen with a crop. I've got, that's my CamLink, which is broken, but this would be just a full rectangle. Oh, you can't see that either, can you? Yeah, let me reshare my screen here. So I've got a few other scenes set up here. This would normally be fully my CamLink, which seems to be just very unhappy with me right now, but it would look like this. And I also have one that's sort of cropped for just me with a background image. I do some other things on stream sometimes. I've done a couple of like music streams where I'll play music with some friends and stream that as well. So sometimes it's helpful to have other setups. Like you can see Tunes here is likely for that. I have a few set up as well that are sort of for testing things that I haven't used as much, but generally I stick to these sort of standby and coding view, which now I've completely butchered, which is fine. It's easy enough to set back. But that goes back to what I was saying before of like, you should really start with what you're comfortable with and slowly add things so that you understand the whole stack of, problems you're creating for yourself down the road.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. See if I can fidget this right back into the size it should be. Yeah, something like that. Good enough.
Nice.
Okay, so one other thing I wanted to mention, actually a couple of other things about OBS. It has some cool features. Right now, this is set up to stream to YouTube. So there's this manage broadcast button, which will open my YouTube studio, which basically gives you to the point where you can set up future streams, you can add thumbnails, you can add descriptions and stuff like that. And that's when you see video scheduled on YouTube, it's coming through that. Start streaming obviously does what it sounds like. Start recording is used for recording live, recording video. You can stream and record at the same time. I've never really needed to. I use recording for doing things like tutorials for work or for my personal YouTube channel or for TikTok, Instagram, things like that. There's one important thing about recording that that I've run into, and I wonder if this is something you've seen as well, Trey, that when I'm recording, because I'm recording my audio into my microphone here and my video into a camera that is not the same source, the microphone isn't going into that camera, they get out of sync. So you will noticeably see on video when I do recordings that, like, for example, if I were to snap my fingers, you might see a delay between the snap of my fingers and the sound of snapping my fingers. To adjust for that, I have added a filter to my audio or video from time to time, which looks like this. So I will go into, actually, I guess I'd probably do it on the audio side. But there's essentially, oh yeah, render delay. So this is what I would do, is add a render delay.
Oh, hold on, I can't see your dialogue again.
Oh yeah, that's right. All right, one more time. Share screen. We tried sharing out my entire desktop before, and the resolution was not helpful for this sort of a thing. Okay, I'll show that one more time. So when the audio and video get out of sync, this render delay is helpful to get those set back up. So add the render delay to the video feed and generally kind of play around with how many milliseconds you need to delay the video to line back up with the audio. I've found that for my camera setup, 125 milliseconds is best. And that might be really hard to showcase on this live stream because there's so many things at play. But like essentially what that means is that when I record, the sound lines up exactly correctly. That varies camera to camera, computer to computer, setup to setup. So you'll kind of need to test it yourself. The way to test that really is just to do a bunch of recordings and see what sounds the best and looks the best to you.
Yeah, I haven't noticed that, but I haven't done a lot of stuff where that would be as easily like discernible. Just, you know, typing or something like that can have a little bit of a delay and you probably wouldn't notice. Whereas doing something like a music stream is definitely going to be more, you're going to see exactly that and feel that pretty quick.
Yeah, that's where I find it the most frustrating is when I'm playing music. Like if I'm standing here playing my guitar and you see me strumming and then hear it, it does really strange things to your mind as you're going through it.
For sure.
Okay, cool. So let's see, what else? Did you have any other questions about OBS or any thoughts that you wanted to kind of get through here?
Sure. Was there anything else that I know you said you don't do a ton of like direct recording, but any other things that come to mind that would be more prevalent in the recording space versus do you have any strategies around setting up your recording outputs to kind of flow into the editing side of things, or maybe you want to show like how you can set up the custom output directory? I know I have mine set up to a specific folder on my hard drive.
That's a great point. And actually I also want to show the virtual camera thing, because I think that's a underappreciated feature.
That is one of the things that I use, because one thing that I've been using, I just kind of use OBS right now for doing a little bit of the recording stuff. I also use Loom just because it's so quick and easy to pop up a Loom and just record something really quick.
Sure.
If I'm doing a really fast like UI tutorial that's like a minute or so, it's really easy just to pop a Loom up. So I do that quite a bit, but I also use OBS to kind of like modify my camera input for Zoom. We use Zoom at work quite a bit, and same with Slack. And you can use the virtual camera as the input into those other tools. So you can kind of like add a filter or add a circle mask to your video. Like for example, I don't know if you can see it on the stream right now, but I have a bounding box around my video because I'm actually piping it through my OBS virtual camera and into the StreamYard.
Yeah, look at that. Yeah, that's really nice. Yeah, so let me throw my screen share back up here. OBS has this really nice virtual camera thing, which basically takes whatever you have set up to show on OBS and pipes that through a webcam feed to your computer natively. So whether you're on a Mac or PC, it should work. You hit start virtual camera and suddenly your computer has this other camera shown up. And I'm really going to tempt fate here, Trey, but we'll try it on stream. If my virtual camera shows up here, yeah, there we go. So now my camera on the live stream is my OBS thing, my whole setup for OBS, and I can sort of modify that and move this around, and that's what guests would see. I'm going to shut that off because it's going to make us all nauseous, but that's really useful for that. So any of these filters you put on your OBS stream, you can set up there, and you can set the crop, you can tweak audio or video settings, you can do the delay setup if that's something you find is frustrating for your calls or whatever. There are also a absolute bucket load of features of filters you can add for audio, which we haven't even gotten into, but you can add filters for tons of things in here. You can add a compressor, which makes it so that your gosh, how to even describe that, the threshold for lows and highs in audio kind of gets squashed into an expected volume load. So like if you've ever watched a streamer who does like horror games and they scream from time to time, it stops their scream from blowing your ears out of from your earbuds, but also makes it sort of audibly interesting. There are these NDI outputs, which I think is what will let you stream your audio from OBS to other apps. Expander is sort of the opposite of a compressor. It takes quiet things, makes them sound bigger. Gain does a similar thing. These are all sort of noise filters here. The noise gate is something that's kind of interesting. I think you might have mentioned this before.
Yeah, I think you're showing a dialog box again, though.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
OBS loves the dialogues.
It does. It does. All right, let's pop up another window here.
And I think while you're doing that, one thing that I thought about, and I've seen one of the other people that I work with does something like this on Zoom, where she'll have, whenever you turn your camera off, you can have an image or something like that. She has a really nice, logo and message on her away from screen image that she uses in Zoom. But you can also use this virtual camera to, kind of like how we have in StreamYard set up right now, have a link or your name underneath your video feed, and then use that as your virtual feed into a Zoom meeting or something, which is really useful for like sales presentations and things like that.
Yeah, for sure. And there's loads of automations you can do. Like you can have that come from a web address. So if you wanted to have a little like a website that only shows the little bit of text you want to show below your face, you could have that so that you update that website and it updates in real time, all kinds of stuff like that. That's actually how alerts work on Twitch streams. If you've ever watched Twitch and you've seen someone like they get a subscriber and a little guy pops up on the screen like a GIF or whatever, those are essentially web overlays that come from a specific URL.
Didn't know that.
Yeah. There's lots of tools for that. The one that is probably easiest to start with is called Streamlabs. Streamlabs also makes another live streaming tool it's a flavor of OBS called Streamlabs OBS. There's lots of tech politics stuff that goes into that, and people aren't so happy about the way they've done open sorcery with it. I admittedly am pretty ignorant to what's actually gone on there, so Streamlabs overlay thing might not be the best in the world. There might be other options too. I'm not going to weigh in on that at the moment.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, there's a lot. Okay, so let's talk about these audio filters one more time. So there's lots of filters you can add to your audio, a compressor and all these things. If you click on this plus, I don't think you're seeing it on the stream right now, but there's like a handful of options that show up here. And I'll just kind of add a bunch of them so that we can look at them. I will have to remember to remove these just to give you some of the options here. But like I was saying before, compressor makes noisy things fit into the audio envelope that your headphones can spit out. The expander does similarly, but it sets it to sort of grow quiet sounds. The noise gate is really the interesting one. And I think you and I chatted about this maybe before the stream, but this would be if you're in a room that has like a loud air conditioner or a hum or something like that, you can set the noise gate to only turn on your mic when it thinks you're speaking by essentially setting a audio threshold for sound. So in other words, if I'm just sitting here typing, it won't pipe through any of that audio. But if I say something, it'll start to pipe through the audio. That's really useful if you have a giant mechanical keyboard with sledgehammer keys that will drive everyone on your call nuts when you're taking notes.
Yeah, not everybody wants the clicky.
Yeah, for sure. Maybe I'm showing my opinion there a little too much, but yeah, okay, cool. Let's see. One other thing I wanted to show, I'm going to pull up my OBS general setup here, is vertical video. So OBS has a lot of features for, they have a couple of different features that let you set up like different presets for your entire stream setup. So everything you see here, you can have collections of different scenes that you show up in this list, collections of different sources, and you probably won't see it on the stream right now, but in the macOS menu, there's a thing called profile, where I can pick different profiles. And if I switch profile, it will come back. I have a vertical video profile here, which is not set up correctly at the moment. But you can see this is the stuff we were just looking at, but instead of being 16 wide by 9 tall, it's 9 wide by 16 tall, which is essentially like cell phone sized. And so here's my strong recommendation for this is there are a couple of different ways you can do this. You can set up a scene collection, which looks like this, where you, well, maybe I'll emphasize that again. So if you look right here, what I'm doing is I'm going to the Mac menu, going to scene collection and picking, I have a YouTube scene set up. I have a Twitch scene set up, and then I have a vertical video one. So we've been looking at the Twitch one sort of this whole time. There's also different profiles, and what I would recommend doing is setting up a completely separate profile for your vertical and horizontal video, because there's something that happens where they share the scenes in between the scene collections, and it gets messy. So in other words, sometimes I'm modifying a vertical video thing and it ends up changing the horizontal video as well. I've found that profiles are the way to go with that.
Makes
sense. Confusing. Yeah. Yeah, so I use vertical video to record for Twitch. I use vertical video to, sometimes I do YouTube shorts, things like that. And also on occasion, I will do Loom-like things that I share to Twitter. If someone asks me for help with, hey, how do you do this with Stripe? Sometimes I'll pop in here, make a very quick video, either vertical or horizontal, whatever makes the most sense. I would use vertical video for a phone thing, for example. And then I'll record that locally, upload it to Twitter, and send it as a reply. I can't use Loom for work because we don't have a, Loom is an approved vendor and all that. So it's really easy to use this as like the sort of de facto way to do it. And I should add too, right now I'm on my personal laptop, which doesn't have my Stripe scenes set up. So I have a slightly different organization of all the things I use for Stripe there too.
Cool.
Yeah.
Do you use the studio mode for anything? That's something I haven't gotten into.
Yeah, I don't use studio mode. What that does is it gives you the ability to transition between scenes. So you can set up, this would be more useful if I had someone who was running the stream for me while I was doing whatever. But what this will do is it'll let you set up different scenes to go in between. So you see on the left, it might be a little vague, but it says preview and program. The preview is showing what the next scene would be, and program is what's live currently. And when you hit transition, it swaps them. So useful if you have a producer. You can also, if you have a stream deck, you can do a bunch of magic with that. But I don't use this because I haven't really had a need to. The one time where I would find this useful would be when I'm doing music streams. It's usually me playing, and my wife hangs out with me here, or the friends are playing with me. Sometimes it's nice to have someone running this, but generally speaking, like I was saying before, it so doesn't matter to me with live streams. Like I like to be sort of more casual about it and all that, and adding complexity is usually not what I'm after,
Sure. Yeah.
It's an interesting setup. They call that studio mode because that's how broadcast studios tend to work. Like TV broadcast studios. Yeah, so that's OBS kind of in a nutshell. Do you have any other questions or any other things that you wanted to talk about in regards to OBS?
You mentioned your Stream Deck. Do you want to get into that a little bit? I know we had talked about you have one, but you don't use it as much. I've been toying with the idea. I was looking around to see if I could find I have an Android tablet, and I would love to be able to connect my tablet and use that as a Stream Deck, but I haven't found a great solution for that yet.
Yeah, so I do have a Stream Deck. I have a Stream Deck XL here, which is the biggest one. I think I hear your streaming partner back there.
I think I win.
Yeah, I think you do win the bet. So I've got sort of the big Stream Deck. You can see, actually, that's probably a pretty good showcase. A lot of the bits and bobs on here are vacant. Like there's a lot of black slots on there because I just don't use it much.
Sure.
I had it set up for a while there to switch between scenes while I was doing Twitch stuff, because I would go between desktop and like the I'll be right back screen. One scene I didn't show incidentally is I have a scene that's set up for like, I need to go edit an environment variable or an API key. And it just it shows my camera, but it doesn't show my desktop. So it's helpful to have a shortcut button for that. Really right now, the only thing my Stream Deck is set up to do is to change the lighting in this room to go from, gross office to stream time. But it can do tons of stuff. So if you're really into automation and fiddling with all the configurations, there's plugins for YouTube and Twitch, and that was Philips Hue is the lights I have in here. All your home automation stuff, you can have it plug into apps. So VS Code has some plugins for it. Gosh, I honestly can't imagine what you would want to use it for with VS Code, apart from like, I don't know, putting it into Zen mode or something like that. But you can do all sorts of macros and whatnot. I am pretty comfortable just kind of keyboard and mousing it through life for the most part. So I haven't found it super useful. I actually think that if I had bought a smaller Stream Deck, I would feel happier with it. Because right now, looking at it, I have, let's see, 4x8 buttons, and easily half of them are blacked out. So a 4x4 Stream Deck would have been fine. And actually what I would say is to start with, there's a Stream Deck app for iOS and Android.
Nice.
Set that up, put your phone on a stand in front of you, and if you find it really useful, then maybe, go for the investment.
Sure.
I think you and I talked about this before we started the stream, but the thing I find frustrating about it is that the Stream Deck configurations are local to your computer. So if you have separate computers, if you get a new computer, you lose your whole configuration. And if there's a way to export it and import it, I haven't found it yet. And so generally you have to like go set up the Stream Deck, install the software, add all the plugins you want to use, redo all your scenes, add all the labels to it. And it's just like, I don't know, an hour's worth of time minimum to get it, set just so. And it's right. Very fragile at that point too.
Yeah. And then last thing, this could probably get into like a whole, that could probably be its own stream, but keyboard shortcuts. Do you use hotkeys for your OBS at all? I was tinkering around with some of the settings before we set up the stream this afternoon and was looking through that. I don't have any of them. Any of the defaults are not reconfigured on my system, but I feel like there's probably a whole world of stuff you could do with the hotkeys if you were so inclined.
There is, and it's very similar. I don't use any of those because I have a lot of keyboard shortcuts that are mapped for other things on my Mac, like window managers and things like that like snap windows left and right and stuff like that. And most of those seem to coincide with what OBS picked for the defaults for things. But I try and keep it simple. I try and turn on my stream, get the music going, and just have me and code and whatever I'm working on be visible for the day. I think it all boils down to do what you're going to be happy with. Yeah. So that's OBS. I have a whole bunch of other things I would love to show you about setting up image stuff, like using Figma and Sketch and whatnot, because there's thumbnails and all this other stuff that gets added to this.
Absolutely.
Yeah, let's get into that. At some point, I might even go deeper on this and try and set up another stream entirely for that, because there's a lot. But I wanted to show the OBS scenes I had set up in Sketch. So are you familiar with Sketch? Have you heard of Sketchapp?
I've heard of it, but I have not used it.
Got it. Okay. So what Sketch is a image authoring app that was sort of like the thing that wasn't, it came after Illustrator and was sort of like a much lighter weight version of Illustrator that people became quite fond of. And Figma and Sketch overlap almost entirely at this point. So it turned into like, you can do prototyping with it, you can do cloud syncing and all kinds of stuff. They're direct competitors. I've just been using Sketch for longer than I've been using Figma, so I have lots of stuff built in here. But in here, you can see all of these overlays that I made for my stream. We can kind of zoom out briefly where I have like the leaf thing that you saw, the border, and each of these things I export and add to OBS as their own image background. And you can even see like some iterations where I was trying things and setting things up. So this was that first one I showed you. And here you go. This is the crop image for the webcam. So nice. Just like I said, it's a black circle with white background, and any white pixels don't get rendered. All the other colored pixels do get rendered in the camera. I also use this. So yeah, actually, the reason this is here, this is my personal web page. I think I put this here so that I could grab the right color of pink to use here and kind of just get the flavor of my sort of theme across everything. There's always things I'm going to want to tweak after seeing this stuff and staring at it for long enough. Like, for example, what's standing out to me right now is that this font is different from this font, but that's just how it goes. I also use also use Sketch for setting up thumbnails for streams. So this is all the thumbnails for my website and for my YouTube streams. But this is the one I set up for today. So I have this like template that's just waiting for me. And every time I set up a stream, I will go and build one of these live coding templates where I add like, here's what we're doing. I grabbed your picture from your Twitter profile, put it in here next to mine, sort of shuffled things around, put a giant OBS thing behind it, and export this and then grab it with YouTube. The nice thing about this is that like everything expects a very specific pixel height and width. Right. So I have this set up to be the thumbnail size for YouTube. I have for other things, this is the thumbnail size for Twitter. And I have the thumbnail size for Dev too. So you can see like the same thing in different sizes where depending where I'm exporting it to, I grab the image and in different sizes. There are definitely services that will do this for you, but I don't want to pay for them.
Well, this is what I use Canva for. So Canva has a whole bunch of preset templates that are the correct pixel sizes for Twitter banners or LinkedIn photos and the whole 9 yards. There's lots and lots of templates in Canva for this.
Yeah, it is a super good tool for that. And I've never seen something that gets people off to the races better. Like
for sure.
There's lots of tools and templates and plugins for Figma and Sketch, but like what you just said, just having the sizes right in front of you to know every time I've had to add one of these, I have to like go look up what is the right pixel size and go do that. And you can even set them as presets. It might be a little small on the screen here, but I've got,
sure.
The logo for a Stripe account, Dev2, Patreon, Twitter, blog posts, and all that stuff. And it's like, it's a little labor intensive to do all that.
But it makes things feel so much more professional. I started doing that with my Loom videos. I added a thumbnail and I basically do the same thing you're talking about. I have like, this is the thumbnail for my Loom exports that I'm going to like share out. And I just change the title. Once you have all these assets in place, it becomes so much easier to just kind of churn through the content. I feel like that's part of being a professional content creator is having these assets in the places where you need them so that it's easy to reference them and to utilize them and make the overall look and feel of your presentations significantly more professional.
You're absolutely right. And I think it's one of those things that like, once you get into it, after you do the setup, these become easier and easier to do. I did this for today's stream. This thing took me maybe 2 minutes, like from inception to export, and spinning it out was really easy. One thing I'll add there is if you're collaborating with a team, if you're working with other people, I would then default to using either Canva on like a team plan or Figma at that point. Figma, let's see, I have a Figma window open here somewhere. Figma is essentially browser-based version of this stuff. So it's a FigJam I had open. FigJam is like their note-taking, drawing sort of thing for like meetings. So you can, add sticky notes and take notes and stuff like that. This is probably actually something that's good for another stream for another day, but I can come back to the list of files I have in Figma or create a new design file. And it's very similar to Sketch. I'm sure I shouldn't say it's exactly the same because that will upset someone. But they have all these preset sizes. So you can come in and grab, a desktop MacBook, right? And like, this is roughly the right size. You can add, rectangles and things to it. And this works really well if you want to collaborate with someone. So I can send you a link to this and we can edit at the same time and you would see my cursor moving around. You can right click on something and leave a comment. Somehow there's commenting features. There's like previewing and prototyping and all kinds of good stuff there. And we will definitely have to do that for another stream because I think that's an interesting topic in itself.
Figma is a whole world by itself.
Yeah, it is. It is. They also did recently get acquired by Adobe, so I'm holding my breath for what that means, but okay.
Yeah, to be determined.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Trey, I think that's gonna do for today. I think we can probably wrap here. Before we go, I do want to mention that if you're checking this out, you should go and follow Trey. His Twitter handle has been on screen this whole time, but it's at Trey, T-R-E-Y, but Botard, B-O-T-A-R-D. Go check him out there. For now, that's kind of a tutorial on OBS. Trey, thanks so much for hanging out today.
Yeah, Mike, thanks for having me. This was fun.
Yeah, for sure. We'll do it again soon. Take care, mate.
You too. Bye.
Bye.